who might have been waiting, you logged on early. Really delighted today to have another discussion with Ginger Smith. And I will tell you, folks, I have been doing these discussions now for 3 years. I've done over 350 of them. Ginger has been, I've had some great guests, okay? And this is not discounting any of those, but Ginger, hands down, is my favorite guest
Wow.
because I love real life stories. There's so much we can learn from people telling their real life story as opposed to sort of the 10-point checklist of how you choose an assisted living or buy long-term care insurance or what you need to know about hospice. When you hear it, and you hear the story, it enables us to really to reflect. It also gives us all permission to share the challenges and things that we're going through and engage in a meaningful conversation. And as I was just sort of saying, Ginger had tuned into one of our discussions and she had shared in the chat that she had lived in a nursing home and was placed on hospice, and now she's living independently. And I reached out and said, Ginger, if you'd be willing to share that story, I know there's lots of people that would be interested in hearing it. And she responded, and I had a nice chat with her, and we had a wonderful first discussion. And I told her the door is always open to come back. And so I'm delighted that you're back, Ginger. So for some of the folks that may have not tuned in or watched the recording, let's do a recap of your very interesting and harrowing story. And you can
Okay.
start it wherever you think is a good place. And then, folks, if you have questions at any point, throw them in there. Ginger loves responding to questions and engaging in thought-provoking ideas. So take it away, Ginger. Just kick this off wherever you think it's the best part.
Well, number one, I am so honored to be on your program, Steve. You do so much for the community, especially the elderly. And when I listened to your program and contacted you, you were so kind to ask me. And my first session with you was wonderful. It was heartwarming. I really appreciated it. It gave me a lot of emphasis to keep on with my advocacy because not that many people kind of like my story, and you'll see there's a section of people that kind of don't accept it. So I'll recap briefly. I had a wonderful life. Oh, by the way, I'm almost 87, so that maybe people can be like, oh, and I did have a wonderful life. I'm living a wonderful life. Actually, I'm living now a wonderful life. I raised two wonderful sons. I had a great career as a speech language pathologist for many, many years. I had gone back to college when I was quite mature and just really successful. I love learning. So, but at one point when I was 75 years old, I started getting encroaching dementia symptoms. And they were anything like cognitive. There was motor. I had horrible tremors, confusion. And I just had to dramatically quit at that point. I tried to do a bunch of volunteering, which I loved, but the symptoms kept getting worse to the point where I was falling, like I fell 8 times in 1 year. I can't tell you which ones came first, the motor or the cognition or the behavioral. Got to throw that in because that added up to what looked to me, and I should say me as a speech pathologist, and to my team of doctors at Kaiser. I had a whole neurological assessment. I had the geriatrician, I had the psychiatrist, I had the neuropsychological 3-hour eval, I had MRIs, I had the whole gamut, and they thought it was Lewy body, and ended up in a wheelchair, and then I ended up, this was about 5 years ago, in bedridden actually in a nursing home. I'm unable to move, unable to talk, um, just dying. Actually, like you say, on hospice. I was on hospice with 2 weeks to live. My body was shutting down completely.
Now,
And
now, out of curiosity, I don't mean to interrupt. During
sure,
this diagnosis, how aware were you of what was happening?
that's a good point, Steve. I had anosognosia, which is a person's inability due to a neurological change in their brain. You're not aware of what's happening. Even as a speech pathologist, you would think I should have been, because I worked at Stanford Neurological Clinic for many years. I worked with Lewy body. I worked with dementia patients. I didn't associate it with me. I knew something was wrong. Something was dreadfully wrong, but I did not know it was me. So to go back, let's see. Oh, so I was on hospice, 2 weeks to live, and I had been at that point on a lot of medications. I want to clarify something. When I started having Lewy body, or I might just call it dementia, symptoms, mainly 10 years ago, I was only on one medication. It wasn't like it was because of polymedicine, as they call it. It wasn't
Right.
because of being um, overdosed
Medicated.
with prescription medications. So I can't account it that's why I had the dementia or hospice. But at that point in hospice, I was on a lot. Now I want to clarify something, Steve. I said I was on 30. I, I was on about 15 to 20 prescription. The rest of them were over the counter. I just want to
Okay.
kind of clarify that because I didn't at our first visit. So
And that, like, so when the symptoms started appearing, you were only on one prescription
right,
med.
right,
And then
right.
you got this diagnosis, and then you find yourself in a nursing home, you're bedridden, and slowly it sounds like in an effort to see what can happen, it ramped up to when you were on hospice, 15 prescription meds.
I like what you said, ramped up, because that is what happened. I wasn't on them until I ended up on hospice. And to make a long story short, instead of dying, and my family, they ordered my cremation. They stripped my little condo of furniture. I'll tell that story. I started to get better. I know
I,
it
I
didn't. It
mean,
wasn't
that's what
overnight.
I love about this story. Okay, so let's kind of back up and break
Yeah.
a few things down. So you
Okay.
got two sons, and you're in the condo that they stripped. Like that was never sold, correct?
Right. It wasn't. I had a reverse mortgage. Thank goodness I did, because they didn't sell it out from me because of the reverse mortgage, which is kind of a mistake at one point. But you're allowed to stay in a nursing home 1 year, and then you have to come back. So I kept failing. Am I saying it right? Sometimes I have word finding. I kept failing, and they would return me home, and then I wouldn't be able to handle anything. I drove my poor family just absolutely just to desperation. And I want to put this out. I'm such a fan of caregivers. I have so much respect for the worst job in the world. For in
Mhm.
some cases, some they sail through it. But yeah, I have the utmost respect. And
Okay, now.
go ahead. Yep.
Oh, no, no, no. We're going to dive into that, but you brought up the reverse mortgage, and I may have not remembered talking about this on the first one. So you're speech language pathologist, you're working, you've got this condo, you retire, and correct, you
Yes.
were not
Mhm.
working,
No,
and
no, no.
and you're living in the condo, and I think your son lives in the same condo in a different
Yes,
unit.
he lives next door. Uh-huh.
Okay, great. And life is great. And now, the reverse mortgage, at what stage in your life did you enter into that agreement, and what was the catalyst for doing that?
Kind of embarrassing. I wanted to set up a speech pathology business out of my home, and I had really bad teeth, so I purchased these implants, which I think look pretty good.
Yeah, they do. Okay.
Actually, in the long run, I'm kind of glad I did, because I wouldn't be doing advocacy, if I didn't have them. So, but
Okay.
that took a big bite out of my finances, and then of course 2 years in a nursing home at $10,000 to $12,000 a month took a really big bite, and so I just was left broke.
Okay, but okay, so you didn't do the reverse mortgage before you entered the nursing home. It
It was
was
before. Actually, it was before.
oh,
It was very close, very close.
okay.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that your finances were not such that you had that you needed the reverse mortgage for your daily living in your condo, which
And
you
my
expected
teeth,
never to leave.
and my teeth. Yeah, yeah, and I, word finding again. I blame signing up for the reverse mortgage from my encroaching dementia, and
Okay.
I shouldn't have, and I kept it from my son. I if I had only been more open and honest with him, if I could. But then the dementia was keeping me like I didn't know I would had dementia. I knew something was wrong, but I was going to determine to be a functioning, self-supporting person at that time. And
Okay.
yeah,
And we see this quite often, in that it's very difficult for us to talk to our loved ones about finances,
yeah,
and you can see where, whether you had dementia like symptoms or not, just the fact that, oh geez, I'm going to take care of this on my own, I can get
yeah,
the reverse mortgage and not bother my family with this.
right.
You can see the path, and I've heard the story before. The good news about this is that you didn't lose the home, that you were
No,
able to go in and out of your home there, and now you've got a place that you enjoy living, and you're out of the nursing home. It's a
yeah,
miracle, actually,
it's a
because like
wonderful
you
thing.
said, you
Yes.
were there for 2 years, and had you
Uh-huh.
not come back and live temporarily, it might be a different story. You might be living in your son's condo at this time.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, all right. So I didn't mean to derail it there, but I
It's okay.
wanted. I think we talk about finances in reverse. Okay, so you you're diagnosed with okay, now actually Karen has a great question. Let's just jump to this. It would be interesting to have Ginger's doctors on with her to explain why the medications affected her that way, and why the removal turned into a success story. Do you have any ideas, or have you received any sort of feedback on that?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've really um, tried to get that from my doctors. And my psychiatrist very kindly said, let's see, how something to the effect of, "Congratulations, Ginger, your incredible recovery from dementia." And so, I had him on my side. My neurologist said, "We don't know what happened." That's and I really truly don't know either. I'm a searcher. I want to know. If it sounds kind of crazy, but if there's something in my little brain that could be, um, I don't know, biopsied with, something that it could help millions. It really could, if they could find something in the neurons that, we'll get into that autophagy, we talked about Steve before. We'll get into that too.
Okay. So, and again, it's, the brain, the human body, we all want this sort of defined, definition of what's going wrong. The good news is that some switches flip to put you in that condition, but then fortunately we flip the other switches and we're talking to you now. But
yeah, and I'm only on one medication now for high blood pressure.
Wow.
I went down to one.
So talk a little bit about the experience of what is it like, you enter this nursing home and you're being cared for by others. And I think I remember you talking about that, like you speak so highly of caregivers. Talk about that experience. What was that like, living in an environment like that for so long, and the good, the bad, the ugly?
Well, I was in a total of 3 different ones. A subacute, very large subacute. I was in a small family one, and then I was in another one that turned into a boarding care situation as I got better. So I have quite a bit of knowledge about the different types of nursing homes. Plus, I worked as a speech pathologist, of course, in many, and I took care of, well, I helped with the care of my stepfather who had Alzheimer's, and so I kind of have a broad spectrum of knowledge in the field. So that's why I think I can bring my story to people as a lived story, not just a clinical one.
Yeah. So what, let's start with some of the good things, okay?
Okay.
Because we hear so much bad stories about, like, none of us want to be in any of these places. But what were some of the good stories about the experience when you were in these various places? And out of curiosity, I'm assuming, getting back to finances, Medicaid, that were you able?
No, I wasn't eligible for Medicaid.
So how was this being paid for?
Private pay. That's why I have no money left.
Oh my
I thought I
gosh.
had a nice little bunch of money stored away for my old age, and there it went. 2 years in a nursing home. That's bad decisions. I mean,
Okay.
one of the things, Lewy body, like I had 3 different sizes clothes, for instance, as I lost a lot of weight. We'll talk about that too. I was making really, really bad financial decisions along the road too. I was
Oh,
handing out $1,000 checks to my grandsons left and
okay.
right. And that was ridiculous. So, I
Okay.
want to get back to shall I get to the good
Get
stuff?
back to the good. Okay,
Let's
what
get good. Let's
happened
go to the
good
good
in some
stuff.
of these settings?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can say one thing, and we can talk about something kind of embarrassing that they were wonderful with. One of my problems as a behavioral component of Lewy, or whatever dementia I had, was the poop issue, and I would play with my poop,
Oh,
and never made me embarrassed about that. And that the
wow.
kindness of those caregivers that had to work in that environment and never made me feel bad. So I'm very touched with that. Even some of the ones that weren't so hot. Yeah.
Still, I mean, yeah, think about it, folks. I mean, this is, the job that people have to do. And again, we're talking to Ginger now, a rational, articulate woman that, had this condition. And what it reminds me of, Ginger, like one of the best experiences that I went through was doing the virtual dementia tour, which is where they create this sort of false environment. They put headphones on and various things. And the way that you behave is odd. Okay. Like, if anybody saw me on the street when I went through that behavior with the voices in my head and the uncomfortable gloves on, they would just say, oh my, look at this man, but I was doing it for my own I'm behaving that way for my own survival. I can't
Yeah.
hear, I can't think. I'm doing the best that I can. And I guess, when we have a cognitive impairment, which you obviously had, it
Yeah.
changes the way that we behave, but it doesn't mean that we're not a good person. It's just the switch was flipped for you.
Well, you're
Um,
making a great point, which is kind of in my heart, is the fact that I didn't know I was doing these awful things. I didn't realize it. For instance, I know the caregivers often, you ask all these questions constantly. Well, my brain didn't tell me that I had just asked the question. A big one was begging for medication constantly, driving my poor family crazy. Also, the big issue with caregivers is I wouldn't take showers. I absolutely was terrified of showers. My thin skin, the embarrassment, the
mhm.
humiliation, and I wasn't doing it on purpose. And I think I told you that food was lava to me. I lost 140 pounds. I became emaciated
The
because I
food
looked
was,
at food and it was moving lava. I wasn't being obstinate or mean
uh,
or hated them. I I couldn't help it. That was happening. My brain was being destroyed, most likely with the proteins that were being affected by whatever neurological problem I ended up with.
okay. Now, Katya says, Ginger, could you mention times that you were conscious of the fact? And were you ever, I know the caregivers, it sounds like we're doing a yeoman's job, but were you ever conscious of of being mistreated or any incidents like that?
Oh yeah. I was conscious uh, all through my hospice, and except for the 2 weeks I was dying, so to speak. Yeah, I was very aware of everything that was happening around me. All my hallucinations are clear as a bell, by the way. Not my dreams, but yeah, I remember one. I couldn't stand. It was one of my issues. I just plop on the floor, and this
Uh,
poor little caregiver was trying to get me to stand, and I grabbed her outfit to hold on, and she just threw me on the bed. Things like that. Yeah, yeah. But
yeah,
nothing. I must say.
yeah. And then let's see, Tracy says, can you talk about some of the support that you have around you that helped you, and it maybe even some of it that hindered you a bit as far as making progress or encouraging you to keep fighting or not to give up? And did I mean I sense when I talk to you that you have this desire to learn, this will to live. Like, did you ever feel like you lost that at any point?
Oh, that's it. Lost it. Well, yeah, I think when I was in the last 2 weeks of the hospice, yes.
Okay.
I do want to say, I didn't bring up last time, I had a NDE, near death experience. Now I realize that's chemical, but for me, it was a thing of absolute beauty and peace. It was, I was, didn't have a body. I was kind of in a total wonderful environment. So I'm not afraid of death, which is nice because at 87, it's it's around the corner. So and my health is pretty good, but it's not perfect. I've got some issues. Yeah, I got a kidney, a heart thing, but I'm pretty strong. And like I say, oh, I want to correct one thing, Steve. I'm not completely independent. My
Okay.
son does handle my finances.
Well, as by through experience, that's probably a good thing, right?
That's wise of him.
Yeah.
Yes.
But from a mobility point of view,
Yes, I'm
you're
fine.
able to get
Yeah,
around.
fix my own meals
Okay.
mostly and shower myself. Oh, my ADLs are completely independent. My trips, I gave up my car very willingly because as a speech pathologist, I had seen the horrors that dementia can cause families, and I didn't want to put my family through that, having to, deny me. I know that's a rough one for caregivers and patients right now. I know that
Oh,
is. Fortunately, I was able to give it up on my own.
yeah. And where you live now, is it in an environment where you don't feel like you're isolated? Like when you
Oh
walk out?
no, no, and I've had such wonderful talk about support, incredible help from people like the villages. Oh my gosh, they brought me a bed. I finally have a bed in my bedroom. Wow, because I came home to a hospital bed. My bedroom had been completely stripped. Let's see, family service agency. Oh my gosh, they sent me out a volunteer who comes to see me every week. What else? Let's see. Next door. Oh, and a wonderful church group that I'm not even a member of have been so supportive. So it's out there. It's out, and then all kinds of transportation. I can get up my ready wheels. So it's out there for me. I'm just lucky to be in this area in California, San Mateo, California, which is gorgeous weather here, that has the opportunities.
So I love that you're sharing these resources that you're able to take advantage of. I mean, because some of the conversations that we have a lot of times is with folks that resist help, is that that I'm not going to accept help from other folks, sort of along the lines of when we were talking about the finances, is like, oh, I don't want to bother my son with this. But have you found, like, has it been hard for you to accept the help and support from these organizations and individuals?
Oh, well, that's an interesting point. See, when I came home from the nursing home, I suffered from learned helplessness. I was a basket case. I couldn't stand up for myself. I'll tell you kind of a horror story. As you know, I was incontinent on wearing diapers in the nursing home. And when I came home, I was still in diapers, even though I had been able to get up and get out of my bed and discovered my hospice material. I think we talked about that last time. So I came home and my poor son had to diaper me.
Oh,
It was awful. And I was clueless. It took me about a month and a half, and I realized, wait a minute, I can wear incontinent panties. He doesn't have to do this. This
oh,
is just an example of the horrors of what dementia can do to families and the people who have it.
yeah, yeah. But the fact that like, it's sort of like you talked about a near death experience that, where you were close to death and you got to see this. The other interesting thing is whether we define this as dementia or the condition that you were in, the thing that I'm so interested in is that you lived it and now you're able to articulate it to us, is that it can help give us some insights on those of us that are caring for loved ones that may have some form of cognitive impairment. Okay.
Well, I'm kind of lucky. I've been asked to do a bunch of podcasts with Alzheimer's Speaks is one, Dementia Minds. I'm a member of the DAA, Dementia Action Alliance. Wonderful
I
people,
love that
supportive
organization.
people. Even though my story is kind of out there, they've accepted me and let me tell my story. So and we mentioned I am writing my memoir and more than willing to send it out for free. NDF, is that NDF? Um, Email. It's 300 pages, up to three. I keep adding to it. And I did want to mention, which I didn't a year ago, I added about an 8-page tips for caregivers as a person who lived with dementia and can talk about it and describe what works and what doesn't work.
Well, I would love it if you send me a copy and maybe we can help you sort of put this together along with some of these recordings. That this
Yeah,
sounds
I can
wonderful.
sure use an editor. I go on just like me when I talk, Steve. I just don't stop.
Yeah, yeah. No, this is great. Okay, let's jump on some of these questions here. Karen asks, was a drug interaction analysis done as the prescription ramped up to 15 prescriptions, or was anything like that done after you recovered?
Oh, after I recovered, like I said, it was they withdrew all the neuroleptics they were due. I have a list of, if I can find it, of what I was on, and gosh, I guess not.
Well,
Anyway, yeah, no, I'm not on any, and my
so
psychiatrist very happy that he didn't have to put me back on any.
but yeah, if you had that list, I
Oh,
you don't need to get it right now,
okay.
but email that to me, because we've had some pharmacists on that de-prescribing pharmacists. I would really be interested for one of them to kind of run an analysis on all those drugs that you're on and just hear their kind of perspective on somebody that was taking these medications.
Well,
Um,
I was on some things I should not have been put on, that's for sure. Yeah.
okay, let's see. Your weight gain and eating, hydration, drinking water. Did you eat well before going through this hospice and nursing home circumstances? Were you eating and cooking well, like before this all happened?
Oh, I was sure not. I was overweight. I was terrible diet. Carbs, sugar. Oh my gosh.
Huh,
Well, dementia patients really like the sugar. That's
yeah.
almost, yeah.
But even
And now
before,
hmm?
what was your lifestyle like before these symptoms started showing? Were you eating healthy, or would you define it as not so healthy?
I was pretty healthy. I had things
Okay.
going on in my life that were, I had a bad kidney issue when I was a child. I had a lot of neuroleptic sensitivity, they call it. They couldn't give me Novocaine because I would just go crazy. That's another reason why I had the bad teeth. But basically healthy, very active physically. I was a I was a competitive amateur synchronized skater at 50. I love
Wow.
skating. Yeah, I love Billy Kulick. Oh my gosh, he's fantastic. Melanin, that's his name. Anyway, got me all
Wow.
excited over it.
Okay. Let's see. Somebody asked, learned helplessness. Is this a professional term? It's interesting that you use this to describe yourself. And I just looked up a article, and it says that learned helplessness is a state that occurs after a person has experienced a stressful situation repeatedly. They believe they are unable to control or change the situation, so they don't try. And I'll drop this into chat. Would you say that defines
Oh,
sort
absolutely. And
of?
it took months, Steve. It was, I would say, oh, it maybe almost years. I finally started to stand up for myself. And it was, remember what I put my son through was hell. And so I want to mention the reason I think he was so overprotective is fear. I mean, is mom going to get dementia again? Do I have to learn to care all over again because she's going to do this to me again? So I totally understand and love him for it, but I want to be independent at the same time.
Now, the fact that before all this occurred, you and your son lived next door to each other
Best
in
friends.
condos. It sounds like you had a obviously, if that's you had a great relationship with them. I
Yep.
mean,
Mhm.
and in the beginning stages of your symptoms, I'm assuming he tried caring for you as long as he possibly could.
Yeah, and he's very brilliant. He's a medical let's see, what do they call it? He's a medical he his job is to work for insurance companies and get people their best insurance by looking into their medical histories. And so he's
Wow.
very
So
brilliant and very knowledgeable. at that, he still has that fear, and just we're at loggerheads about my recovery. And but it's getting better. He brought me some chicken the other day. I mean,
Oh,
yeah, it's a
no,
lot
this is
better,
great.
a lot
Now,
better.
okay. Okay, and then let's see, a question here, and I'm not sure if you've got these off the top of your head, but you had somebody said you'd mentioned 8 tips or 8 pages of tips for caregivers. What are one or two kind of tips that you can share with us today? And I'll try to get that and share it with folks.
Oh, I guess that's you have to come into their world. Their world is not real. It's not, and I just love the idea of creative fibbing. You know that don't tell a person you have dementia. They don't need to hear that. Don't tell them they're wrong. They don't need to hear that. Tough it out. Take care of yourself. That's a big one. You got to care. It's like the thing with the airlines, you got to take care of yourself, because if you don't, the survival rate for caregivers is it's awful. It's almost worse than people with dementia. You probably know statistics about that.
Yeah.
That's another one. Uh,
Um,
Go ahead.
let's see. Elizabeth was asking, what's the church that you'd mentioned that there's a church that's assisting you that you're not a member of? Do you know the name of
Oh
it?
my gosh, Dana, I love you. Let's see, but gosh, so St. Andrews, I think.
Okay,
I
all
mean,
right.
a couple
St.
churches,
Andrews.
and
We'll
not
we'll
just
call it
one. I
St.
don't,
Andrews and
one thing about me, and I'm really lucky. This is kind of personality I have, I guess, is I'll go, yeah, I'll just look into everything and I'll accept. I am not too proud to accept everything that's thrown at me, and boy, I take advantage of it. And I'm very, very, very thankful that I can and do.
oh, that's great. And it might be St. Andrew's Lutheran Church in San Mateo that you might be on that, but we'll give you
There,
credit
San
no matter
Mateo.
what.
Yeah.
Um,
And
okay.
Teresa, I love you too. If you're, I don't think she's on,
Oh,
but
oh no,
she comes.
Dana is on
And
here.
Maria, oh my gosh, Maria has visited me. Maria is a saint. She came when I was just barely home from the nursing home and opened my eyes. I didn't know what Zoom was. I didn't know. Oh, by
Oh,
the
you're an
way,
expert now.
well, I'm not obviously. I just wanted to say that that oh God, I lose my train of thought. I have empty eyes still. I wanted to point that out, that even though I passed my neurological evaluation, a 3-hour one, not long ago, they did still diagnose me with MCI, mild cognitive impairment. So every once in a while, I have trouble coming up with words, and I'm not very good with statistics or anything like that. But
Um,
other than that, I passed with flying colors, above average.
oh,
Yay.
it's amazing. And Dana is on this call and she says, as Ginger's friend, I can attest to her amazing spirit and energy. She's sharp as a tack and so funny. I'm glad she shared her story here. And Dana, it's wonderful that you're here and and we're able to share that personal insight. And I totally agree. You've got just a great personality, Ginger, and
Oh, and,
it's
and,
just
and Dana and her wonderful husband, Sean, came into my home to a bedroom that was just filled with junk and cleaned it up to the point where I could put a bed in it. So that's
man,
that's the kind of wonderful people that I have in my life.
wow. Okay, Katya says it sounds like early on she was medication sensitive. I'm also medication sensitive, and
Yeah.
doctors refuse to acknowledge that this exists. Can Ginger discuss a little about her feelings with dementia, especially at the end? So often caregivers believe they are gone when they no longer communicate. Yeah, great question there, Katya. Do you care? Can you comment on anything around that? Like when you're on the edge of hospice and and you're diagnosed with all this stuff, how did you feel? And yeah.
Well, I with the agnosia, I and the hallucinations, to tell the truth, I kind of enjoyed them. I think one, I don't know if we discussed it last time, but I was able to control them somewhat, which is something I would love to teach the caregivers. Is that I use lucid dreaming technique, and I would be able to change my hallucinations into from thinking I remember I was a tortured animal to a happy animal that was living on a farm. And so that's a technique I still use to this day, is lucid dreaming, to not be overcome by horrible nightmares or dreams. I don't have them now. I don't have any hallucinations. I started to say, I kind of miss them in a way. They kept me occupied. I'm lying in bed, unable to move, no visitors. By the way, this was in COVID 2019, that whole year. And
Mhm.
so my family couldn't visit. I had one strange caregiver. I was all alone. She kept losing patients one after the other. I was in this room that didn't even have a window. It had a window, but it just onto a fence. So I never saw a living human being. I didn't even have TV until my son arranged me to have a TV. Yeah, it was a very, very lonely. So I would hallucinate.
Okay. I am not familiar with lucid dreaming. I dropped a article on it in chat for folks. But something that you said that I've been struck by when I visit a dementia care community is that um number one, if I'm visiting a dementia care community and there's somebody that I know and I know what their behavior was like and I know that they're different, it's oftentimes sad because it's like I knew that person in a different way. But in
Absolutely.
general, if I go into a dementia care community with a wide field of vision, it is one of the most creative and life without filters environments that that I could be in. I've often sort of drawn the comparison that, wow, it's kind of like how I would imagine uh, an artist colony to be is that
Mhm.
where we just express ourselves on whatever is coming to our mind
Yep.
and share that, and that's sort of how you're describing the dreams and the hallucinations is that, hey, I'm going to sit back and enjoy the ride.
Oh, speaking of which, I really have to watch my swearing. It's a wonder I haven't come up with a few F words, because I certainly did, though, with the dementia. And you know, I also want to mention kind of another horrifying thing that we didn't talk about, and maybe I lying in bed and, like I said, hallucinating. I also, they left me in this one place up more than 12 hours at times with a poopy diaper that I had masturbated so badly, because that's
Oh,
all I could do, and opened up an abrasion. So you can imagine what that felt like.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is yeah.
I hope I'm not embarrassing you or the people, but I think
Look,
it's so real. I mean, I wanted to show how the horrors of it, at the same time, the good. So I thought I
mhm.
would bring that one up.
Yeah, no, no. Well, because again, it's very easy for us as a caregiver to see somebody who's doing is behaving the way that you were, and to again, like you said, it's like to get angry, to get defensive, that can provoke even more um behavior. And okay, let's see. Katya asks, does Ginger believe that if lucid dreaming was taught early in the symptoms, it would help those with dementia manage their symptoms? And were you aware of lucid dreaming before all this happened?
Oh,
Or
I was very much aware of it before it happened. And the person with the dementia has to be in some of the early stages. You couldn't teach someone anything. They would have to have a certain amount of cognition to be able to understand how to do it. So, yeah,
All
I
right,
agree
well,
with Katya. By
folks,
the way, Katya is wonderful. She's another person who I respect highly. Plus, oh, by the way, I'm a real fan of Teepa Snow. I think
oh,
you recognize Teepa Snow. She had me on her program. She called me a unicorn.
oh,
Does that fit?
I totally agree with her there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, this is just it's just fascinating that we can be talking to somebody who's gone through an experience like you have, and how, you know, humble and gracious you are to the challenges that were faced, that people faced in your care. Let's see. Elizabeth says, did they allow you only certain people to assist you? How did they ask you in a way that convinced you that they could help you? Did church
Hmm.
members or anyone else?
Oh, well, of course, hospice is wonderful. I had it through my care provider, Kaiser. They came to it was actually in a nursing home environment. It wasn't at home, it was there. They were the only people, because this all happened with COVID, that I saw, and they couldn't have been kinder. They provided material, they would showers. I mean, I don't know. It was a wonderful financial boon, but I kept getting better despite myself. I was thinking, I want to keep them on. I'm going to lie about recovering. And I thought, no, I can't do that. I'm going to have to tell the truth. I think I told you, Steve, we mentioned the fact that during all this happening, I managed to find a way to climb out of my hospital bed, and in the middle of the night, because my only caregiver at that time was just this one guy who slept way far away, I was able to sneak out, and I discovered my hospice notes. And I read them. Unfortunately, I didn't have a phone, or I would have taken, screenshots of it, because there was my diagnosis, clear as day, Lewy body dementia. And I actually told my social worker the other day, I said, I think Kaiser owes me an apology for that diagnosis, putting me and my family through hell.
Mm.
That it, it was done. I'm not litigious. I would never think of course, but I think, yeah, we went through
Well,
hell.
yeah, I mean, the fact that you're, I mean, the fact that you are, it really makes us all very recognize that when we get a diagnosis for anything, that it can send us down a path that may make it worse. Okay, and that's, my gut level in listening to this is that I think you went down many paths, but that first initial diagnosis of something
Oh,
like
gosh.
body,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. That was a lot. That was a death diagnosis. So 5 years to live. Now, of course, it's been what, about eight now. No, not quite eight. I didn't die, and such a horrible death. Louis, the type of dementia I appear to have is very different from Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Of course, they diagnosed me early, by the way, with Parkinson's because of the movement disorder, but it just has this other horrible component that is so repugnant to families. They can take the paralysis, they can take the questioning, but when it comes up that with that sexual stuff, that's really hard on families. It was just tough, really tough on my son.
Man, okay. And I'm looking at we've been talking for an hour. Everybody, don't worry. I see that you can, this has been recorded, and it'll be at proaging.com under on-demand recordings. So you'll be able to watch this if you tuned in a little bit late. Let's see. So somebody asks, so you're saying you worked with the lucid dreams and conversion of nightmares to more pleasant images, such as changing monsters into farm animals. And
Yeah.
did you develop these skills on your own?
Well, I mean, the lucid dreaming, yes, but the actual changes, I would do. Like I mentioned before, I think last time, I was a big black snake. I was the snake. That's I wasn't seeing a snake. I was the snake, and I changed myself into a pretty green jewel snake pit. So that's how that works.
Holy cow. This is amazing. Okay. And let's see. All right. So back to this Elizabeth's question. Um, did did any did church members or anyone else knock on your door without calling first after you told them you didn't want to visit? Like, did you have any experiences like that?
Oh no, they were wonderful. They always
Okay.
called ahead. They 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 just did so much. They provided food at times because I was so broke. What else to say? Oh, the bedroom, of course, cleaning out. I mean, it's so supportive without any expectation from me. It was just out of the kindness of their hearts. It's just remarkable.
And then Elizabeth's also we touched on it a little bit, but the from okay, so now your son has full power of attorney of your finances.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, and if you didn't tune in the beginning, that is Ginger hid a lot of her finances, and she has had a reverse mortgage, a bunch of other things. And so now you have mentioned several times that you basically burned through all of your savings in these care facilities. How are you doing now? Are you getting public assistance? Are you
No, no
um
public assistance. I have a nice Social Security, but
okay.
living in California is so expensive. So it just takes care of my expenses across the board. You know what I do, Steve? I do a lot of clinical trials. All I can find, because I believe in them, when a friend of mine said, "Well, you're prostituting your body for money."
Well, oh,
Well,
oh, oh, trials, medical
yeah,
trials. Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, hey, just be careful. I don't want anything getting you back there, but yeah, no, no, no. Well, let me tell you, it sounds like that have you formally like said that your um brain could be used for research
Oh,
when you're
absolutely.
gone.
Yep, yep. I've assigned that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure. I have it at Stanford right now. I may change it to specifically to a dementia site that'll just go to the brain specifically. So I'm kind of in the process of thinking about that. I want to mention one more thing with that near death experience. You know, it sounds corny, but I feel so much that my mission, that I was brought back to help others, that help others. And if my book or this story or being on your program can open that up,
Oh,
that's what I
like I
want.
like I said, Ginger, I mean, I've done over 350 of these, and you are my favorite guest because it's just the fact that you're willing to talk about this so transparently and to hear what you've gone through. There's so many different lessons in terms of just reminding us that when somebody is behaving out of the ordinary, that they're not doing it intentionally, that um it's what's going on in their body and their head, I mean. and
I want
and
to give you couple more things, I think, before we have to leave. Is
yeah,
that I'm not incontinent anymore, and I'm not ghosted anymore by some of my family friends. So yeah.
it was funny. I reviewed the recording of the last discussion, and you talked about how your family totally ghosted you, and
Yes.
one of the comments was, "This is so awesome." An 84-year-old woman saying that she was ghosted. And
Yeah.
again, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Well,
but
my
but you
grandson gave me this fancy watch
but
and came to
you've
see me yesterday. So,
you've
yeah.
repaired some of the because yeah, when you're describing your behavior, you can see where that could create tremendous tension in a
Oh,
family.
it did. It did.
And but you repaired some of those relationships, and that's wonderful to hear too.
Yeah.
Um, well, this is amazing. The okay, somebody asks, have you had brain scans? Was there sort of a before and after of
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, well, I did, and I had very, very small stroke. Nothing, my speech, moving, everything's perfect. But apparently, there's some shrinkage. But at 87, that I'm almost, going to see some shrinkage. So, yeah,
And Katya talks about the near death experience, and she said that she had a near death experience, which led her to work as a dementia educator. Before that,
yes,
she was working with kids. But
she's
out of
incredible.
curiosity,
Mhm.
like your near death experience, this was when you were in the nursing home.
Right, right. My blood, like I said, my blood pressure was orthostatic was below what is compatible with life. Dysphagic. I couldn't swallow. I had that. Um, let's see. Oh, well, we didn't talk about the autophagy, which I think is I got to throw that in because I've lost suddenly this 140 pounds. I think it helped maybe prune my brain with some of the bad neurons. I'd like to look into that a little more too. So I kind of wanted to bring that up as something that I think is pretty interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Well, man, there's so much to digest here. This is a wonderful conversation. And like I said, Ginger, the door is always open. We don't need to make this an annual event.
Hey.
It could be more um, uh, uh, frequent. But do send me any, drafts. I'd love to see the medication list and pass that to some of these with your permission, to some of these deep prescribing uh, pharmacists.
Yeah.
That might be another great opportunity to have you back on for a discussion on, hey, here was Ginger's medication list, and sort of going through and talking about some of the things that could have led to a slower recovery for you. Let's call it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I'm not saying that there are a lot of things that cause dementia. I had a bunch of them. I had lots of UTIs. I had inflammation in my teeth. I had a very long ago addiction problem. And there are a lot of things that could contribute to dementia. But I think lying flat on my back is not delusions for over 2 years. There's got to be something more than just say a delusion or a medication error. Yeah. Oh,
man.
I just want to say, Steve, I'm just so thrilled to being here. And you've got me. You want me, you got me.
Oh, I love it. And well, thank you for your patience with the tech problems, to you and to the audience. I mean, that was all target on my back, but we made it happen. This has been an amazing discussion. I'll get the recording up later today. And Ginger, let's definitely stay in touch. And thank you everybody for participating. And you got so many great comments, just like the last time you were on. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a great